Oh, could that be? Could that be? It is. It's magnetic. You know me, while I had the chassis topside up, I couldn't resist doing some exploratory cleaning, and it's cleaning up better than I had hoped, considering how crummy it looked. Most areas there is no corrosion, just dirt. I've just been using CLR and Windex. This is actually aluminum, I think, pitted, and now you can clearly see Mallory and duct tuner and the various patents and whatnot. Likewise, these IF cans are aluminum and they clean up fine. It's just pitting. This is, I'm sure, cadmium plated steel. There's corrosion here and there. Moisture got on it, something dripped on it. Maybe it's humid environment. Like this socket's got light surface corrosion. I had no idea that these wires were color coded. These old plastic wires, the plasticizers leach out and they get sticky and just everything adheres to them. Denatured alcohol, grain alcohol with a touch of methanol in it, cleans them right up. And this, I thought this CRT was dag coated because it's so rough and thick with the dirt. But I took a closer look and no, it's just glass. It's just really, really, really dirty glass. And underneath that is the original Dumont label. A bit faded, but it is a 12QP4. And my memory got jogged when I was looking at the reference photos. This had a brightener on it when I got it. I know I tested it in the first video. I gotta test it again. I might have a 12KP4. Which I might have a couple spare 12LP4s, but those are all going to be a little bit longer. So I really hope we can squeeze some life out of this. And I'm starting to think maybe I will unmount this and just dig up some rubber. Actually, I think I do have some rubber the same thickness that's about this wide. I don't see why it needs to go all the way to the front, unless this forms some sort of gasket or bezel kind of thing against the front of the cabinet to block out light. I don't know. Speaking of light, interesting with the mode position. So I mentioned there was TV and radio. I was actually two TV positions. Well, there's phono, there's radio, and then there's TV light on and TV light off. I think that refers to whether or not these dial lamps are on. I'll play around with that a little bit. I replaced one of the bulbs that was burned out, so these both light up now. But I could see how that would be annoying when you're watching TV to have these two lights going. I'm working on taking the picture tube out now. It'll make the set easier to work on. I'm going to go for it. So I already started taking off the band, and then I got to thinking that somebody asked me a question recently. It gives me an opportunity to talk about it a bit, which is, well, what do you do when these are stubborn to get out? If it gets stuck or hung up on the yoke or other components? Well, first off, getting that support band up front off was a pain, especially on the bottom. There's a similar rubber substance, which from the weight of this, it's mushed down more. This is what I used, the putty knife. Slowly worked my way around, loosened it up until I could pry it off. Some of it's still flexible, but most of it is hardened and it's certainly falling apart. So the top part was actually easy, but underneath, well, until I get this off, I won't know for sure, but it seems more like tar, like they put on some caulk or something and pushed this down into it, and it was seized up. But I got it loose. I slowly worked my way around with this. Whatever you do, don't put it like a screwdriver down there and pry. You don't want to break the glass. You don't want to snap the neck off. Imagine if you pry the CRT up, but this is still secure. You pry this up, and the neck's just going to snap off. Okay, so that's out. I'm trying to get this out that way. Of course, you have to take the CRT socket off the base. This base is a little loose, so I have to be paranoid about that. Now, the the clearance around this is the electromagnet focus coil, and there's a yoke in front of that. There's not a whole lot of clearance. And this has a lip here, so if this gets hung up on that, it's going to rip the base off. I don't want that to happen. But the bigger issue is the yoke, and that's what I was asked about. What do you do when you have a stubborn yoke, a yoke that is shrunk, a yoke that is stuck on there? Well, one thing I've had to do in the past, especially on early sets, 47, 48, is heat them up. I've used a hairdryer or heat gun on low to heat them up. There's many coils, many turns of enameled wire, and it's sort of lacquered together. If you heat it up, it softens it a little bit, and you can deform it a little bit and enlarge it. I've heard what they did back in the days, they just ran some DC current through it, like hooked it up to a dry cell, maybe with a current limiting rheostat, and heated up the coil by passing current through it, which would expand it out or loosen it up. I don't know if I quite need to do that yet. There's something odd on this. So there's a wing nut here. Normally there'd be a washer under it, and you would loosen it, and you could go back and forth to level out the picture. But this has no washer, and the wing nut is this is all the way down. I was able to yank it back up. So there is some play to the yoke. I can rotate it. My bigger concern, though, is the electromagnet, because it's pretty massive. So I'm just going to remove it. Shot a little arrow coil on the nuts there, and I've been backing them off slowly after taking a lot of reference photos. There's 3 nuts, and then a wiring harness going to it down below. I got to admit, I do love the way this stuff smells, so I didn't mind using it. Probably not the healthiest thing to breathe, but very aromatic. Well, if I use a Tuss CRT, I'm going to want to take this off anyways, because it interferes with the self-focusing Tuss CRT, bench CRT. What's going on? Isn't this not want to come off? Okay, because the whole screw's turning. Oh, I hate when that happens. Come on. Why? Why is it always the last one? That gives you trouble. There we go. And I gotta get this little wiring harness tab thing off. Will this just... Yeah, it's crusty. There's grommets on this. Of course, anything rubber related is rock hard now. Come on. Oh, boy, that sucker's heavy. There. It's probably a lot of copper. I've never taken one apart, but I've heard people have, and there are maybe 5,000 turns of wire or something crazy in there. Ah, okay. That could explain my problem. Boy, I might just have to crack that. I think this used to be inside of this. Otherwise you'd have metal against glass. But, man, I think that shrunk. I don't think it can, it's already cracking. I don't think I can get it off the base with that. Barely. There we go. Alright, I think that's what my problem was. Come on, so close. There we go. Yeah. I'll replace that with something if I decide I need to. Gun's a little discolored. We can finally actually get in there now and see it. It's a bit blue. Once I get this thing unmounted, I'll test it again. So now, all that out of the way, hopefully, get this out, spin this guy around. Another workbench aid a number of you have suggested is a Lazy Susan turntable arrangement, and yeah, I could see on these massive chassis that would be handy. Getting this off will shave a little bit of weight off. 10 pounds. Not a whole lot, but it's something. But more importantly, I won't have to worry about breaking it. Gotta get it through the yoke. Yes, yeah, okay, it was definitely that collar that was giving me grief. There she is. Ooh, she's filthy on the bottom too. So here's the sticky goo that was on the bottom that was holding this in. It's still mushy and sticky to this day, all these decades later. Oh, look at that. Look at that mess down there. So this back in here originally there's probably some rubber oh yeah, it was down here. That's just shrunk and hardened and it's toast. And boy, that yoke is just flopping around. We'll deal with that. So it's a very similar arrangement on a lot of sets I've seen before. And we can get down here, clean all this crap out. More importantly, with that out of the way, it means I can dig into this better. I really want to clean up and lube all the gears in here. And the rollers inside that. Man, even with that out of the way, I can get at some of the screws, but this is in the way of one of them. Boy. Thanks, guys. And I know I'm going to end up having to unmount the whole damn thing. Oh well. Oh, here's the other big reason to get this out. Now we can finally see the multi-suction can electrolytics. There are 3 of them. Heinz dry. So I'll probably use Adaptacaps if I can. I think I'll just take this whole damn thing off and let myself get down in there. Oh, another little fun bit of engineering. Seen this in a few sets. That'll be very likely the horizontal oscillator for shielding, vibration, minimizing. Sometimes these are mounted on the sockets are shock mounted to avoid perturbances to the tube elements. Or what do you call it? Microphonics. That's it. That's probably a 6SN7. Yeah, I'm sure it is. It's the universal. Most of these tubes are going to be 6SN7s, all these octal tubes. Classic dual triode workhorse of early TVs. Another one over here. 6AC7 video amp, I'm sure that's another real common thing. This guy, 6AG7 maybe? Yep. Sometimes see these in the audio circuit, I don't know why. Most manufacturers didn't use them. What's this guy? 6SJ7. See these as the first audio stage in some sets. I'm not sure if that's what they're using it for here. It seems like an odd place for the audio circuitry, but we'll figure it out. On this guy has a metal base on it. Oh, 6SJ7. I'm used to seeing that more in radios than a TV. Well, of course, this is a radio too. Maybe that's what it's from. Look at the size of these IF cans too. They make them so big, I don't know. Early RCA, they're gigantic too. The later sets, well, you see like this Admiral. Well, no, it's not a big. That looks underneath the chassis, but slightly later sets, they're about half that size, and much later sets. Of course, they went to higher frequencies too, from 22 to 44 megahertz, which makes everything smaller. But a decade later, they'd be a third, a quarter of this size. I suppose at some point we should take a look inside this box back here too. Check out what the flyback looks like. Interesting control placement too. So we have a potentiometer for something down here. And we have one up here. I'm not quite sure how you would adjust that when it sets in the cabinet, because it's completely inaccessible. I want to rotate it. What would that be on the flyback? Horizontal drive, maybe? But boy, that's usually very accessible. It's the kind of thing you want to adjust. Why would they hide it? Because they're Dumont, that's why. So, I'm going to save anyway. Yeah, it's still pretty damn heavy. Let's see. First order, I'm going to remount that focus coil before it snaps the wires going to it, and then get out the mini vac and start cleaning this debris up. Alright, let's check out what's going on inside of this box. Voila. As I mentioned earlier, there's often a large power resistor. That's the one. That's the one I thought that I discovered underneath the chassis was doing this, serving this purpose. But now, hey, there's a tube missing. So the set could not have been working when it was retired. B3, I'm sure. Horizontal output tube, 6BG6, and whoa, that doesn't seem right. Tad loose. Super common flyback. All these early sets used it. Thwart arson replacement is just fly number one. All the early Admirals, early RCA, all use the same flyback. They all look like this. All interchangeable. Oh, that's a 3-position switch. I wonder if that's a course width control. I bet it is. Or linearity, maybe. Alright, yeah, just do some more dusting in there and see what the heck. There's got to be a screw loose or two somewhere. That definitely shouldn't be flopping around like that. Alright, no real cause for concern, that's a good thing. And for some reason we have this in the top. Or is that the back? Let's see, it goes like that. Interesting. It looks like it would bump up right against the side of this. It serves and seems to serve any purpose. I think that's wood. Oh, could that be? Could that be? It is. It's magnetic. Was that there to suppress Barkhausen oscillations? Wow. I've heard of them. I've never actually seen one or never needed to add one. Trippy. So I've never seen this actually happen, but theoretically it's possible that these tubes can develop some sort of self-oscillation, Barkhausen radiation oscillation, it's got other names, that can result in distortion on the picture, waviness or something like that, or a thin line. I forget exactly what the visual effect is, but that's got to be what that's for. Huh. Well, this set is definitely something different to work on. I'm working on replacing all the multi-suction can electrolytics right now. Before I do, I want to clean things up a bit, so I have the opportunity with the CRT out of the way now. I know there are purists out there who are all about restuffing these cans, but boy, I really got to argue in this case. They are located underneath the CRT. You cannot see them when you pull even if you pull the chassis out of the set, unless you pull the CRT out. So I really don't think we're losing anything in terms of originality. I'm also curious how short these are. Part of it, I suppose, is because the picture tube was under there, or sorry, right above them. But also, they're just two sections, and there's not that much capacity. 30 microfarad and 10 microfarad, it's all that's in this guy. So as you can imagine, the replacements are fairly small. This is the biggest of the group because there's one cap that was rated for 475 volts, so I'm putting a 500 volter in there. And even though these are twist locks, they all have two holes. So I imagine when they punched out this chassis, they gave themselves the option of either using the type on a phenolic insulating wafer, in which case it would have been riveted to the chassis, or the twist lock. So these are the mini adapter caps, which I don't believe are currently being sold. He only sells, at least last time I looked, the larger 4-section. But these line up perfectly, and it's insanely. 2 of them are 2-section and 1 is 3-section, so it's exactly what I need. And all these mounting holes line up, so this is a piece of cake. So that takes care of the 3 under there. And then the only 2 others on top, these are just single caps. 80 microfarad, 350 volts, and these are the 2 that are in series to make a 40 microfarad, 700 volt capacitor. And to replace that, I'll use a couple of these guys. But those were mounted on holes going right through the chassis. Back, kind of underneath the yoke there. So I might just mount these completely into the chassis somewhere. May or may not reinstall these for appearance sake above the chassis. But for now, I wanted them out of the way so I can get in there and work on stuff. The rest of the electrolytics, and there are a bunch, they're all little axial guys like this, 10 microfarad, 25 volt. And we had some bigger ones. So there are a couple of these guys are rated at 1.5 ohm at 120 hertz, 6 volts DC. That translates to around 900 microfarad. 1,000 is close enough, so that's what I'm using. And in fact, on the SAMs for the replacement part specs, they do say 1,000 microfarad. And interestingly, let's see, where is it? One of them apparently was replaced ages ago. So these both are 1.5 ohm, 120 hertz. So one says CPS, the other one has a little sine wave symbol. But obviously, 2 very different package styles, different manufacturers, different part numbers. So one of these is original, probably this guy, because it has a mounting strap, and then I guess, or had, it was, it matches the other one that I removed. This is the 3rd one as well, which is this guy here. So I think that one in the middle is the replacement. And this guy is a 2000. So these 2 on the left were across the horizontal centering control, and the one on the right was across the vertical centering control. Those have a very small amount of voltage on them. That varies the amount of DC bias current going through the yoke. And you do not want even a hint of ripple on that, otherwise it's going to superimpose that ripple into your image, and it's going to waver on the screen either horizontally or vertically. So that's why they went with really, for the time, unusually large value electrolytics to get rid of any trace of hum on those bias voltages. Alright, so the CLR is doing a pretty darn good job, but in some areas there's a bit more corrosion. I don't know if there was some type of reaction here with dissimilar metals, but it seemed curious that where some screws protruded through, there was significantly more corrosion. Likewise where these rivets are. And here, probably some liquid spilled in the set or something. Or rodent. There's minimal signs of rodents chewing on wires, but generally the chassis is cleaning up pretty well, especially considering how ugly it looked. Okay, so to get this stuff off, God, I may have to use paint thinner or something like that. Maybe I could melt, maybe a heat, yeah, okay. Rather than going straight to chemicals, I'll try a heat gun and just wiping as much of it off as I can and using solvents to get the remainder out. As soon as I'm done with this, I'll mount all the stuff back up. For powering it up, I'll use a little test CRT, which is a different anode connector, but since it has already been cut and spliced, I don't really have any issues with cutting this off and temporarily putting on an anode connector more suitable for my 5-inch bench CRT. Slowly making progress with recapping underneath the chassis. Started up here and I've been working my way around. That is the base of the horizontal output tube. I want to replace everything down there. That has been my experience as the most problematic area and the area that you want to be most reliable. Flyback is fused, which is a good thing. It'll help protect it. The original was burned out and they snapped in one of these replacements. I don't know if it's the correct amperage rating or not yet. Also replaced, I think, all the electrolytics that were down here. So this and these two guys are on the centering controls, those low voltage high capacity types. And we got a few other axials here and there. These two guys being in the horizontal circuitry were 1000 volt caps. I use 1600. Boy, I wish they still made these white Mallory caps, but no more. So we go with the yellow for the rest. I'm almost out of the whites in any value. Got a bit more to do in this area. Kind of curious what these are. So we have these coils going down around, but we also have the giant IF cans on the top on this side. I suspect these are traps, but I'm not positive. Meaning these are the transformers. The signal path is following down or through here, and these are the IF tubes. Or maybe that's sound. Maybe that's sound. Now that I think about it. I don't know. I'll have to look on the service info, but clearly we have one chain going down here and one up here, and that's the video detector, so it seems pretty clear it's video. And there's another gimmick cap up here, and another one up here. So they sure like their gimmicky capacitors. Definitely don't want to mess with that. I can see that the wires have separated a little bit here. I'm afraid to do anything with it. I don't know if they're supposed to be split that way or not. You know, with age they might have separated. I have found some more evidence of work done here and there, but nothing major. One of the caps up here have been replaced. How do I know? Because you see horrible soldering job on, on all the replacement stuff. I found a source for the relay, I do believe, and it is on its way. Same as I mentioned earlier with the focus coil. I think I'll hold off, even if I get the recapping done soon. I'll hold off until those two items arrive to try powering it up. Well, for sure we need that in the circuit. The relay, yeah, I could short it out, but I just as soon wait for it. And meanwhile, I still have plenty to do with the recapping. Resistors, I don't think I've had to replace any yet. Even though some of them look a little miserable, they've generally all been within spec. And I've been finding more and more and more that are doubled up. So 2 there, 2 there, 2 there. I'm not sure if that was to fine-tune the value to increase the wattage. So these fat guys, these are 2 watters. So with 2 in parallel, the same value. So this being a 100K 2-watt resistor, it's a 50K 4-watt resistor. Could be. Could be. Oh, I got one more electrolytic to do. 10 microfarad, 50 volt. Oh yeah, so the final 2 electrolytics top side, I was using how to do it. Those were the 2 that plunged through the top of the chassis. Well, in my Adaptacap selection, I had some prototypes, including a couple for just single section electrolytics. So that's what I used. So yeah, that takes care of that. Just got to wire them in. So far, everything's going very smoothly. I think, assuming there aren't any issues down here, the real big challenge left is going to be at some point to unmount and clean that whole induct tuner tuning assembly. I was trying to take a little look-see here to see where it's attached. Oof. Boy, I can see one screw there, another one there, another one there. Those are supposed to be the mounting screws. And there's a couple wires going up, or one wire going to the chassis, a bunch more up there, and there must be the wiring going to it. I gotta think about that to see if I can do it well enough in place versus risking unmounting the whole thing. Here's a little progress update. Finished replacing the paper caps all on the left side. Got into this area. Starting to find more problems though. The tube socket pin broke out of the phenolic socket wafer. I pushed it back into place with the octal tube in there. It could be pushed onto the pin. It'll work until someday when somebody pulls it out and goes to put a new tube in, it'll knock the pin out of the way. So I should really replace that. I'll look through my stash. It's not something I have to do very often. I think I have sockets, but I have no idea where they might be. Worst case, I could scavenge one from another set or hunt around online and find new old stock, or even new production, I suppose, if I have to. Continuing down, there's a new adapter caps from the other side. And we get down here, and I was wondering what this conglomeration floating in space was. One of the terminals broke off of this terminal strip. Ugly old repairs were done here with a heavy hand, I guess, and they just snapped the terminal off. Probably the same folks that broke that tube socket up above where another part had been replaced. I'm not inclined to dig out that terminal and replace it. I think that would do more harm than good because there's a lot going on here. And the wiring in this set's pretty stiff. It's sort of lacquered, cloth covered, and a lot of it is laced up. I really don't want to disturb this stuff if I don't have to. So I'm going to replace all these parts. For example, that's a 100 ohm 5 watt resistor. Here's a new one. Vitreous enamel. These can take a lot more heat than a smaller package, but it's equivalent. And I'll secure it somehow, but I'm not going to dig that out. And then we got to this guy. These little fibers sticking up. At first I was hoping it was just some stray fibers from cloth covered wire around this bobbin, but no. Snap, snap, snap. From rodent activity or from whoever was heavy-handedly making this repair. Broke a bunch of windings on that. That is horizontal linearity control. Maybe if all those breaks are on the surface, it could be repaired, patched up. However, I looked up the part number, and the SAM's, it's the very last coil here. There is no recommended replacement part number. But I googled that Dumont part number, and I found it in a Thordarson coil replacement guide, and they cross-referenced it to a WC14. Googled that, and bam. So dude's selling a bunch of them on eBay, $9 a pop plus a few bucks shipping. So for $14, I'm getting a new one. It's on the way already. So that's that. I'll save it. Maybe it can be repaired, but it seems like he just literally in 2 minutes I found the part online. I figured that's kind of karma, so let's go for it. It's kind of turning into a Lazarus or a resurrection project, I should say. Maybe that's more apropos. So we have a new focus control, should be here tomorrow. We have a new quality relay on the way. I forget the name of the company. Potter Brun, I'm just butchering it, but it's one of the well-known relay makers. That should be here within a week, I hope. And then we have this guy on the way. Picture tube's also very weak. Tried rejuvenating it. It's barely into the green with 6.3 volts. Remember, this set had a brightener on it. The life test is terrible. Of course, we'll hang on to it. We'll give it a shot, but I went to my storage locker and dug out a 12 LP4 I bought sometime a decade ago. I think off of eBay or something. It's still in the box it was shipped to me in. It tests like new. It's an RCA, needs the DAG recoded. I don't want to dig it out of the box right now because I just don't want to risk breaking it. But we will be installing a new CRT. The owner already knows about it. It's just slightly longer than it's about a half an inch longer than the original, but he doesn't have the back for this set anyways. Well, when I measured it, it's going to come out to about as far as these controls that are protruding. Here's another quick update. I finished replacing the paper caps all up through here. Worked my way over this way and encountered a broken tube socket here. This pin had been broken loose. I kind of pushed it back into place. If an octal tube was inserted in the socket, it would grab and hold in place, but really the socket needs to get replaced. Somebody had replaced this cap and did it crudely and broke that off. So I'll dig up a socket or buy one if I have to. Work my way down through here. There are some more evidence of some ugly old repairs. I haven't quite dug in here. It's getting a little bit... Basically, I did the stuff that was easier to get at. It's getting a little tough to dig down into these crevices here. Here's the bottom of the new adapter caps. Then I worked my way down here, and I noticed there was another odd-looking assemblage of parts. Terminal broke off terminal strip. Again, repairs were done. Heavy hand, broke off the terminal, just globbed everything together. That's the horizontal oscillator tube. I generally replace all the parts in the horizontal circuit. It's critical. It's got to work. And not coincidentally, this has more work done than any other area of the set. A number of parts have been replaced, so I'm just going to rebuild the whole thing. For example, here's the new 100 ohm 5 watt resistor to replace this guy. A lot smaller, vitreous enamel that can take more heat, made by Ohmite. It's kind of old school looking, but smaller than this old cool ohm for sure. I'm not going to dig out that terminal strip and replace it. It'll do more harm than good, I think. This wiring is brittle. It's lacquered, cloth-covered wire, I think, or it has some coating on it, and a lot of it is laced up. I do not want to disturb this. I don't want to crack the insulation. I don't want to undo the lacing. So we'll just do what we can to secure it. Then I got to this guy, and I noticed some fiber sticking up, and I was hoping it was just some of the cloth covering on this wire coming undone, but no. We have a bunch of snapped wires. Maybe rodent activity. Could very well be whoever worked on this just smashed into this coil and broke a bunch off. That's a horizontal linearity coil. I looked on the SAMs, and it's the very last coil on this page. There is no replacement part listed. But I took a chance and I Googled that Dumont part number, and lo and behold, I found it in a Thord Arson cross-reference that the early television Foundation had scanned and put online. And so I Googled, it came up to a WC14. I Googled WC14, and bam, one on eBay, $9 each. And looks like he has more than one in stock. So of course I just hit buy it now, and for $12-13, there's a new one on the way. Yeah, I can try and mount it, I can try repairing it, but since I can just, in 2 minutes I found a replacement one, that's what we're going to do. This is turning into a real resurrection, Lazarus kind of project here. So we have a new focus control on the way, should be here tomorrow. New relay, thanks to a Video Karma member. He has a few. That's on the way as well. It's from a major manufacturer of relay pots and something. I'm butchering the name, I just can't remember, but others have used it in their Dumonts and they gave it a thumbs up, so that's what we're going to go with. So that'll be on its way. We have the new width control. Picture tube, tested pretty weak. Remember, the set had a brightener. I tried rejuvenating it. I got it barely into the green with a horrible life test, so I talked with the owner and we decided to replace it. I went to my storage unit and dug up a 12 LP4 RCA branded that tests like new, even though it's slightly used. It needs to have the DAG recoated. And it is half an inch longer, but I measured things. I did a test run, and it will fit. The end of the base comes right about to where these controls end. But he doesn't have the back for this set anyways, so I don't know how much, I could fabricate it back for him, and I can put whatever clearance I might need. I can put a little cup if I need to bump it out a little bit or something, so I'm not concerned at all about that. So, onward and upward, and I'm thinking I should really check the continuity in all of these these guys. I got a vertical blocking transformer, we have a filter choke, and a vertical output transformer. I think that's what we're looking at. Because the way things are going, there's a good chance one or more of these is bad as well. That being said, everything is proceeding smoothly. I've been able to very quickly track down a replacement for all these parts, which is not normal. not for a set that's this old, and it's not rare, but it's not real common either. Maybe it was just meant to be.